folks, I'm Tina Hui with Follow the Coin, and we're here at the Stanford Blockchain Workshop. And this is, of course, Julia Tourianski. Did I get it right?
Very good.
Please explain who you are, what you do, and yeah, we want to get to know you better.
I have a website called bravetheworld.com, and I guess the best way to describe me is as an anti-state propagandist, and I'm very into Bitcoin because I think it's in line with my morality.
So what is your morality?
I don't believe in centralized, forceful entities that dictate the way that we live. And the blockchain and Bitcoin, which is offered on the blockchain network, is something that allows us to make a choice about how we interact with each other, not only financially, but how we communicate with each other later down the line, because I think the tech it's got more use cases than just being monetary. But when I say that, it's almost a contradiction because economics is human behavior and interaction, so everything is inherently monetary, so it's one and of the same.
Right. So what is anti-statist propaganda?
I guess I'm from Russia, so I'm used to, there's the classic propaganda machine is very pro-state. So you've got Goebbels in Nazi Germany, you've got the Soviet, the posters, and even in America you have the posters and the propaganda, and the machine kind of absorbs the communication of the entire country to put out their status quo, and it always leads to very bad things. And if we could change that and give information and the ability to be independent when it comes to monetary transactions, which is what interaction revolves around ultimately, what fuels it mainly, because it gives us incentives, it empowers people.
Right. No, it makes sense. Freedom of choice, or freedom of religion. It's all these things the Constitution kind of sort of loosely says you can have, but you don't really because of patriotism. Yeah,
I think with something with technology that we can actually use towards the means that we want to use it for without being told how to use it is what will ultimately free us, because a piece of paper doesn't have that ability and it can be misinterpreted. But the Bitcoin space right now is very, I think it's being derailed. I think the original ethos of Bitcoin, which is very Austrian school and very freedom, pro-freedom, is being derailed, and that's not only via regulation, but via the corporate world and the startup world, because ultimately most corporate entities, their end goal is to make money, and to make more money, you often have to, the best way to make more money, you often have to comply with regulatory bodies, which, the government and the corporate world fuses into a single entity with a single goal, whether they realize it or not. So, I'm very worried about the space.
How do you find it it's like kind of unavoidable now? In order for it to be seen as legitimate, because
we're born into the structure, and how do we circumvent that structure? Even we're having these tools now, and we're still falling into the same exact thing that we've seen over and over again. We know it doesn't work. We know it always leads to violence. We know it leads to trading off freedoms for other hypotheticals, and we still do it over and over again. And I find that the space is falling victim to this because of our voluntary actions.
How do you find a solution towards making sure there's still kind of a free-form Bitcoin world?
There is the community is still small in Bitcoin, and if people hold companies responsible for kind of perpetuating immorality and a ground of ethics that they will follow first and foremost above everything else, if they have an audience and a community that holds them to that, that is the only way we can do it. And I don't, right now 21 came out, and Peter Thiel and all these big guys, and they got a crazy amount of funding. People, oh cool, what's this going to do for the space? I am very certain that they have absolutely no moral qualms in trying to monopolize the space. And Peter Thiel, in his book, talks about, he claims to be a libertarian, but he talks about natural monopolies and how they can be great. And the best way to do it is to find a niche market. Another way to do it is, of course, by providing a better service than everyone else. But he speaks very much in favor of them. But you know what? How else do you do it? You use your connections and you get everybody to give you money. You get crazy investment. You raise I don't know how many, 50 million, 100. They raise more money than anyone in the space, and you use that to your advantage. Once the technology is young, you use it because you're the most powerful entity in that space. That's how you get a monopoly, and I think that's what they want to do. They want to use their power towards making the most money and being most influential in the space. And if they think that they're going to have a moral ground for that, I don't think so, because Peter Thiel supports power.
Right. Well, playing devil's advocate, right? Can it be argued that everybody who is in Bitcoin is interested in money and hence a capitalist?
No, that's great. I'm a capitalist. But I think that's not, being a capitalist isn't inherently negative.
You just don't like the monopolistic.
Yeah, being a capitalist isn't inherently pro-government. I am anti-government. I am pro-capital. Now, when capital is dependent on submitting to government and submitting to regulation, or stepping on everybody else because they got ahead by doing that already, that is not a free market system.
Right.
That is not the same thing.
So you're pro-collaboration but anti-monopoly, right?
National monopolies happen because they offer the greatest product. A natural monopoly, if 21, just hypothetically, because they raise the most money, that's not a natural monopoly. They raise the most money because those companies already work with government and they grew and bloated because of those relationships. That's not a natural monopoly. That's not a free market monopoly. That is using your advantage of success because of if you're working with the government, it's immoral because government takes money. If you're supported by government entities, you are supported by government.
If you could build an ideal world, what would it look like?
Well, I guess that's a huge question, so I'll stay in the confines of Bitcoin. Bitcoin is supposed to be decentralized, and I know that has scalability issues, but I think we have to deal with that if we want to keep it decentralized, because that is the difference between Bitcoin and other monetary platforms, right? And again, not purely monetary, but I already covered that. You can't have a monopoly. You have miners, we need miners, you can't have a monopoly. And that's been, we've been talking about that 51% attack, all of this. This is a fear that everyone has. So there's positive things, when it almost happened, people pulled together and, went against it, and there's this one talking about the community is still kind of inherently aligned with what Bitcoin was supposed to be. When that community switches gears and we get the more mass adoption and they don't give a crap about anything that I've just said, we're going to go into any direction that this free market puts us into. But it's not a free market. So this is the danger of it. We need to continue to have these discussions. If it's a new tech, we shouldn't let it be molded into an atmosphere that is ancient and doesn't work. And that is what's happening. So we need to pay attention to people who are speaking about things that make us uncomfortable.
Very interesting points. Thank you for sharing them.
Thank you.
And then, I know we're trying to keep this brief. However, tell us about, Brave New World.
Brave the World.
So tell us about Brave the World.
So it's a play on words from Brave New World, because Huxley predicted this environment that we are living in today, this brave new world. Let's not succumb to that. Let's brave the world and do something that's not that.
No, I like your shows. They're very, very passionate, and you've always got a very good perspective, and it makes you kind of think about the topics that you're touching on.
Follow me at Brave the World, and I have a YouTube channel, of course, but the easiest way is just go to bravetheworld.com, and it's all on one page.
I think you're one of the more important voices in this ecosystem, so thanks for staying around and braving the world with us.
Thank you very much. I'll continue, I hope.
Bye, guys.